Go. AM 1580 WVKO, your heritage station. You turned into the BLEV broadcast, BLEV 614, and hosted by Victoria Leatherway, executive producer of BLEV 614. And her special guest today will be Franklin County Treasurer Cheryl Brooks Sullivan, and also Lillian Williams, Director of Community and Civic Affairs, right here on AM 1580 WVKO Heritage Station and 92.9 FM, The Drum.
Hello, everyone. This is Victoria Leatherway, executive producer of BLEV 614. Please join us online live on YouTube, BLEV 614, and also follow us, tweet us, and Facebook us. If you want to, you can call in at 614-824-2139. So I'm just going to jump in and we're going to start. Should I call you Miss Sullivan? Should I be very formal, informal, say Cheryl?
Cheryl. I would like you to call me
Awesome. Cheryl, you have a wonderful story, and I would love for our listeners and our followers at home to get to know exactly who you are, and we'll get to talk about your position being the first African American woman to hold a position as Franklin County Treasurer. So that's just an awesome feat and something that everyone can aspire to. So let's start with your childhood.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of your show this morning. Good morning to everybody out there listening. So you want to know a little bit about me as a child, or my childhood,
Yeah.
you said. I was an inquisitive child. I was blessed to live on a couple different continents. My parents met and were married in England, and when my mother was, I think, around 6 months pregnant with me, they moved from England to Columbus, Ohio, to Lockbourne Air Force Base, which eventually became the last home for the Tuskegee Airmen. And my father was sent there to help prepare different positions and housing for Tuskegee Airmen as part of the his military experience. And then we returned to England, and I was there till I was 6 years old.
Wow. So you think living abroad and having a world view helped you in your political career?
It's the only experience that I've had, and what I have noticed, I have met people along the years who have never left their hometown, and we do seem to have a different perspective, a different sensitivity. Whether or not it's better or worse, I don't think I would judge it on better or worse, but it's definitely a different perspective. I feel blessed that I have been exposed to different cultures, different lifestyles, different countries. I think it is for me, it's definitely been blessed. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So, I want to skip a little ahead of, just before you ran for government. What were you doing in between college and becoming the first treasurer, African American treasurer?
I spent some time in the United States Army. I was in Central Intelligence, Army Security Agency. I was a cryptographic special identification technique operator. I love to say that. I love the way it sounds.
What exactly is that? That's a mouthful.
I was a cryptography, Morse code, a ditty bot.
Oh, okay.
We did Morse code. We transcribed secret coded messages. I did a brief stint with Local 423 when I first came home from the Army. I was doing asbestos abatement. I was a union member. It's they call it the unskilled labor hall, Local 423. Spent some time in school again, and my mother, who had always been a homemaker, was doing this new and different thing. She was training for nursing when she met my father over in England. So I have one sister. My sister's 12 years younger than I am. I left for the military, I come back, and all of a sudden Mom's being just fabulous, just glamorous, and doing this thing. And she doesn't really like to drive, so she asked if I would go with her. And all we were doing was showing people houses, and then she was going to the bank and cashing checks. That's what it felt like from the outside looking in.
Right.
So everything I thought I wanted to do in my younger years suddenly turned to, oh, I want to do this. I want to participate in this field. Real estate looks interesting to me. So since 1979, I've been licensed in the field of real estate, doing either appraisals or sales.
Right. And I noticed that you were not only just doing real estate in Ohio, you were in several different states.
Yes, I've been licensed in Maine and Florida as well.
Wow.
And I was training in California for a year. I was in Los Angeles for a year training with an appraiser named Lloyd DePass. I met him at a conference for the Realtist, which is the sister organization, a brother organization called the Realtist. And it came about because once upon a time we were not allowed to join the Realtors.
Wow.
We had to have our own trade organization. So as being a part of that group, I was able to spend a year in California training under somebody who was a pioneer in the field, because there weren't a lot of blacks in appraising back in '79. There weren't a lot of blacks in real estate, I guess.
Wow.
So yeah, I've had the benefit of some exposure in different states.
So
licensing,
I would
practicing.
think that experience would help you in a political sense, knowing that you're somewhat of an outsider, you're someone that's being an African American, working in a field that there's not a lot of African Americans in that field. I would think that would help you in being a politician and being in the position that you're currently in.
Well, myself and my peer group, many of us have the title of the first. Coming up when I came up, being born when I was born,
Right.
many of us were the first to walk through the door in our occupations, or whatever we spent our time doing. So I don't put too much weight on that. It had to happen sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, my generation we bear that responsibility. We had to walk through those doors, so we just did.
Wow. Do you think that what I want to ask is, do you think if you haven't been the first, who would have been like someone that would have did that if you didn't?
The job of treasurer?
Mm-hmm. Was there some other African American female that was out there leading that fight before you got in?
Not necessarily for that office. Actually, my predecessor was doing an excellent job. There was nothing that has ever been raised in terms of his office not giving excellent service, him being an excellent public servant.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that anybody was coming for that position. Right now, there's an actual active campaign going on. We've got November 6th looming, just 13 days away. We have early election at this very moment. The sign on your door here, Terry Jameson running for judge. We've got Jiza Page running for judge. We've got Karen Held Phipps running for judge. We've got Monica Hawkins. We've got Marilyn Brown running for her seat again as a county commissioner. We've got one of my favorite and one of my mentors. A lot of people say WWJD. Well, with mentors out there in terms of African American women who are leaders, who are very actively changing the landscape of our community, providing benefit and opportunity for all of us. How you doing, Pastor? That's one of my favorite people right there. One of my favorite people. So I don't know that anybody was necessarily looking to get into that position, but we have quite an excellent representation of African American women leaders in Columbus. We are blessed.
Right.
We are blessed.
What do you think about the whole female movement, the Year of the Woman? It's amazing to me that not only we have all the great women in Columbus, but you look at the woman that's running for governor in Georgia. I mean, she's going to be the first African American governor of a state.
We have to stop waiting for permission. If not now, then when?
Right.
I believe the opportunity is not necessarily going to hand itself to you.
Right.
You just really have to just understand in yourself. You see the job, you see what's being done, you see who's providing the service, and you know I could do just as well, if not better. And some of the ideas that women have had not been brought to the table yet. And we're sitting back, just biting down on the haunches like, well, why haven't you tried this? Why haven't you considered that? And instead of asking somebody else to present these ideas, we're coming up now, presenting them ourselves. So it's the perfect time.
So what made you get into politics? From real estate to politics, how did you make that jump?
My family has always been very community oriented and community involved. Both of my parents are leaders in different organizations, and I was raised in a household that it's your civic duty to be a part of, many different communities, your church, your neighborhood community, your cultural community, things that you enjoy doing, you take, ownership of providing service for everything that you enjoy. So I was basically raised that way. When I was fresh home from the service, I decided, I also thought, maybe I'm an adult now, and I want to have a social life. And when I would go out, the people that I was interested in spending time at a club in Columbus, Ohio called the Marble Gang, and on Thursday nights, all of the community leaders were in the Marble Gang. And I made it my business every Thursday night to be in the Marble Gang, and I used to listen to people like Jerry Hammond and Les Brown and Pastor Reeves, and they'd be in there, and we'd be listening to jazz and having dinner, and my community leaders would be talking about their vision, their plans, and they would be pulling us in and telling us to become a part of, and I caught fire at that point in time, and the rest of my life I've always either volunteered movement or particular candidates campaign.
So, can you tell me, my listeners, I guess our generation, you're 18, you're 36. We have this young progressive movement that I'm part of, and I wanted our listeners to know what's your thoughts on the importance of voting, because we had over several different voting cycles, the youth have not come out and voted. So why is this year so important to get that young vote out?
It's not only important, a long time coming, and it is the group in your age group that I'm on social media a lot. And I guess for my age group that might be a little odd, but I spend time on social media and I'm watching the posts and I'm watching all the different blogs, and young people are talking about what's going on. We had the best example of what happens if you don't vote currently right in front of us every day, all day. And I think people are understanding that they have the power to change that, to redirect that what happened because not just who voted, but who didn't vote.
Right.
And especially in our African American or Black communities, our percent of participants in the voting cycle change the entire outcome 100%. I would not be in office right now had the Black community not got out and voted in that particular election. We cannot just assume somebody else is going to handle business the way we'd like to see it handled, or to provide the opportunities that we want to see provided. And it is definitely something that I'm hearing talked about in all age groups, but specifically I'm seeing it posted in the younger generation. And November 6th, I can't stop telling people, actually right now, as we speak, you could be on your way to the early vote center on Morris Road and cast that ballot. You can still mail in your absentee ballot. You still have time. Volunteer to get people to the polls. Everybody needs to accept the challenge that I keep hearing to get at least 5 people that you can think of that are registered, because now we can only deal with registered voters. We can't register you anymore. But those who are registered, you got to get them there to make sure.
There are particular issues that motivate the minority voter. Right now, you hear a lot about health care and Obamacare. But is there another issue that we should really think about when you go to the polls? This is an issue that's going to affect you regardless that we're not talking about it a lot.
Well, jobs and opportunity are definitely at the forefront. There isn't necessarily any legislation right now in terms of affordable housing, but we have to continue to provide for those that are not able to provide for themselves. And we have some candidates running that definitely have some plans in terms of making sure that the least of us are able to afford at least the basic necessities, and one of those being affordable housing. And then again, back to the jobs and opportunities. We're talking about being able to allow everybody who comes through high school to come out ready for college and or a trade, an immediate occupation. We're beginning to understand that we have to empower people straight out of school. The years that otherwise they spend finding themselves are a lot of years that they could end up going in the wrong direction or just losing opportunity. You have to be able to provide food, shelter, safety. We're talking about, limiting and minimizing crime. We're looking at issue 1, and issue 1 could provide for some equalization in the way people have been handed sentences for crimes that are now being looked at differently, for participating in activities that the whole nation has all of a sudden begun to have compassion and empathy about. Well, there's a generation that was very harshly sentenced and judged based on the exact same activity and illnesses, and we're looking at the ability to maybe level the playing field and offer opportunity and some justice in terms of how people have been handled who have issues with drugs, alcohol. So there's some very important things going on right now that we need to vote for, we have to vote for, we have to be a part of. How you doing?
All right. This
That's one of our fighters right there.
right.
That is
Well,
definitely
you
one of
mind
our
if
fighters right
we
there.
bring
No,
this?
please bring. If he wants to, I would love to.
You sure?
We correspond briefly in the last month or so about some African American male wellness issues and how important that is to our community. Without our strong households and our men at the headship of these households, or just the headship of parenthood when they have the opportunity to be a part of their children's lives, we have to make sure we keep these men healthy and provide every opportunity to them for the benefit of obtaining this health care.
Wow.
So yes.
See, you didn't even have to get up here and embarrass yourself
Oh,
like
no,
I'm
I got the
embarrassing
message.
myself.
I got the message.
No, but we were part of the walk earlier this year in August, so we want to continue to support that from BLEV. We're doing anything we can to get the message out because I love everything they're doing. I had 4 brothers, now I'm down to 1. So it's very important for me to support any initiative that helps my brothers in arms right now.
That's actually how I ended up with a radio talk show. My father passed away from cancer suddenly. He got sick one day, and 8 days later he was dead. And part of the way I helped myself grieve through that process was to take the talk, well, I won't mention the show, but I did a show on the inequalities in the African American community and healthcare. Because it just happened so suddenly, not only near and dear to my heart, it's engraved in my spirit and my soul, that men need every opportunity that they can to take care of themselves. Because the whole family suffers when we lose them.
And the one thing I've learned from my brother passed away earlier this year, and it was that medication and affordability of medication. And it breaks my heart that he didn't have the funds to get the medication to be here with us. And we got to get more
health that this country is associated with, that any group of people could not have what they need to take care of. Like we said, the bare necessity, your health. There's not much else you can be in this community or contribute if you don't have your health. So it's unexcusable. It is unexcusable.
Yeah, I'm very proud of this. Too bad you guys can't see this at home, but this is wonderful.
I can do my Facebook Live.
But a couple things I want to talk to you before we're closing out our half-hour show here. What is the future of Democrats? I'm a little concerned because 2020 is not that far away. What are we missing? We have the enthusiasm, but why we are not getting as many people in office?
Well, that still boils down to the number of people who come out to vote. I think the last statistic I saw, we came out at a rate of about, I think, 34% of the registered voters. there's somewhat of a disconnect between the GOTV, get out to vote, getting everybody registered, and then getting them to the polls, to actually get them to the polls. I think that there's a bit of a cumbersome process when it comes to going online, getting your absentee ballot, getting registered, making sure you haven't been purged, and that whole purging, that's something that we've got to get Kathleen Clyde in as our state auditor.
Right.
She's going to put a stop to all of this foolishness with purging voters based on the last time they voted. If the last time you paid your electric bill was March and the electric company purged you all of a sudden, you'd understand
Right.
how significant and how they should not have the ability to do that. Well, it's the same thing with our votes. Nobody, I'm sorry, Secretary of State, thank you. Nobody should be able to allow somebody else to take your name off of the voting registry without at least talking to you first.
Right.
Point in time. Somebody needs to contact these people if they're going to allow the purging at all. We have people who are ready to come into office and make sure that we're not removing people from the polls, and those that are being removed are disproportionately people who look like you and me. So even though we are getting people registered, there are other little shenanigans going on that are interfering with our process, and then again, we're not getting them actually to the polls to vote, and we're not getting the absentee ballots in. We just need to put a little energy, not just in the registration, but in completing it, getting it all the way through to the actual vote. We've got excellent candidates. We've got excellent initiatives in our communities. We've got leaders. We've got advocates. We just got to get out there and vote now.
Yeah. And another thing, I read an article where there's certain states that are putting up initiatives to, when you go to renew your license or get your license, you will be able to you can register to vote at that point. I think is a great idea. Just like they ask you if you want to be a donor. I think there's like, if you want, while you're getting your license, they can ask you, do you want to register while you're here?
I agree.
And you can say yes, or you can say no. I think
it is.
Because a lot of times you get busy in life, you forget to go and register. I had to nag my daughter, go and get registered because you've got to vote. And I wish we could have that in Ohio. If you think there's a chance that could happen here, if it start moving throughout the country, they put those initiatives up.
Well, each state has its own voting rules and regulations, and that would be something that would have to be legislated at a state level. So if it's what the people want in this state, and I think the more they're educated on the different options on how to secure voting and how to increase the numbers of people in voting, I think there are some other equally as good ideas going around in the community, but that is definitely one of them that would work well. But then again, just registering people, not getting them actively participating and getting to the polls, that would still be a challenge. We need to really stay focused on, I'm going to say, educating people as well. I think once people understand how every part of their life, they actually have an opportunity to put people in office that will redirect and create initiative that people will understand why they're voting for these people and who to vote for based on where they'd like to see their life go themselves. There's a disconnect right now with people thinking that they have no control or they have no input or there's nothing that they have to gain by voting. I think this last presidential election has helped some people see that there's a lot that is controlled by your life. And they're understanding through the opposite, through the horrible experience that they're having right now, the fears that they're, everything they read is fearful, and everything that, certain people are saying is just creating anger and angst. And I think they're understanding that part of the reason they're experiencing this is because everybody didn't get involved and vote, and that we do not have to experience people like this in office.
Well, I want to ask you one more question before we go here. And it's a little, if you get a chance to go back and speak to your 16-year-old self, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? What advice would you give yourself?
that your value is God-given. It is not based on who you were or how other people define you. That your value is not, you don't alter it through experience. You're born with it. And to understand that you have to continuously work on not only improving yourself, but improving the community around you. We're all responsible for that. There's not just one set of people that have that ability or that responsibility, that each of us have that.
Right. And is there a motto or a creed that you live by?
Not really. Every day I just get up and I always want to do the right thing. And if for some reason I fall short, then I'm going to do the next right thing.
Right.
The opportunity to recreate myself on a daily basis and always to do better is just what I strive for.
Right. My brother always had one. He said, my mom always told us that she was in the military too. And she said, I'd rather live my life standing up than on my knees. And I always believed in that. Like, well, I may not have the political power or the funding, but like my little baby show here.
You do have the political power.
I do?
It's in that vote.
Oh, yes,
Please
yes,
don't forget
yes,
that.
yes.
You do have the political power.
Right.
It's in your vote.
Yes, and I vote every year.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm so happy to have you here. I'm inspired by you.
Well, thank you.
I'm sorry I'm not the regular host, everyone, so don't beat me up on social media. But is there, tell everyone where they can follow you, if they have any questions about any treasury questions, social media, where would they get information from?
Well, you can go to our social media site on Facebook, the Treasurer's Office. It says Franklin County Treasurer. And if you just put that in, you're going to come straight up on our treasury spot, our Facebook spot. You can leave us a message there, or you can go to our website. You can leave messages there. Lillian, what is?
HTTP treasurer.franklincounty.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I've got headphones on. I don't know what answer your question. I can't hear the answer.
Google, people, Google.
Yeah, Google. That's it.
Well, I am going to thank everyone for following us, watching us, and thank you. We are actually going to have her back with the real host of the show, Spin with Gwen. So look forward to that. I think we're coming back in November? December, people. Right. So follow us on BLEV 614, YouTube, and Facebook, and get more information of that. Thank you all.
Early vote.
Early
November
vote.
6th, please.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.